Roll out those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer. Those days of soda and pretzels and beer. Roll out those lazy, hazy, crazy.
So I mentioned in an earlier video that I'd like to give you a few tips of how we have traveled internationally as a family, and so hopefully you can use some of these tips too. And so we like to go travel somewhere internationally about every 4 or 5 years, and we do this very affordably, and I'll share with you a few tips here so that maybe you can do it as well. We have only one credit card, and that is our Delta SkyMiles card. We charge everything on there, all car maintenance. If we have to renovate something in the house, then that goes on there. Everything goes on our Delta SkyMiles card. This enables us to travel round trip internationally, and all we have to do is pay tax. So I think that's about $100 per person. And also, when you're a SkyMiles member too, we get to have a free checked bag, which in the long time ago when I used to travel, it didn't matter about your bags, but now you have to pay for bags when you check them. But if you're a SkyMiles member, you can have one checked bag included. So that's also a great benefit for us, because a lot of times we will pack extra things besides clothing. We will take things like, maybe for this trip, for instance, we took scuba equipment, and we took a lot of extra food, because Bermuda, I think it has the highest cost of living in the world, even more than Hawaii. So very expensive for food, and so we packed about 50 pounds of food, and I'll get to that food part here in just a minute. So the other tip is picking out where you're going to stay. For us, I think like an Airbnb property or a VRBO property are just wonderful for families. And I say this because, for instance, on this trip, I did a lot of cooking, and I made sure that our kitchen was stocked, and we were within walking distance to grocery. So from whenever I pick out a location when we travel, I make sure that it's within walking distance to stores and transportation and that kind of thing, because even if the accommodations are not, very upscale and luxury, I'd rather have a better location, especially when I'm traveling internationally, because I don't really want to rent a car. As a matter of fact, you can't even rent a car in Bermuda. I think it's critical to just stay with somewhere where you can just go out your door and have activities there. You can catch a public transportation, or you can go down to the grocery store, rather than being stuck out on some countryside, unless that's what you're there for. But when we travel internationally, I want to be able to keep my kids entertained, so we are always on the go. So now we'll look at food real quick. And as I mentioned, I did a lot of cooking. We actually packed a lot of food, and a lot of my food I packed it frozen in a suitcase, believe it or not. And I checked with customs to make sure we could take it over there. That's something you have to be careful with. And by the time we got there, my food was still frozen. All the steaks and the fish that I had packed and things like that, all of that was still frozen. I just popped it in the refrigerator there. And so I just did things like spaghetti carbonara. We did wraps for the daytime trips, just little sandwiches and wraps. And then when we went out to eat, we just did little light things, sometimes like a hamburger for lunch, or we do a soup, pizza. One pizza would be about $30. And so we would all do that as an appetizer, just to kind of get the atmosphere of going out to eat, and then go back to our place, and then I would cook a big meal so everyone would get filled up, because my men eat. I got 2 boys and my husband, and they will tear up some foods. And then transportation. I try to stay, as I mentioned, within walking distance to grocery and that kind of thing, but when we wanted to go out and maybe explore the island some more, we use the public transportation system like the ferries and the buses. And on that particular island, you cannot rent a car. You would have to rent mopeds or take a taxi. And then the last thing is for activities, we try to just do some of the free things like the beach. And fortunately, my brother and his family were over there too, so we were able to meet up with them and just enjoying being a family. So I hope you can use one of those tips for your family travel. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a beautiful day.
You wish that summer could always be here. Days of soda and pretzels and beer. Roll out those lazy, hazy, crazy dust of the sun and